Today's video is brought to you by Audible. Get your free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/MagzTV, or click the link in the video description down below. G'day ladies and gents, and welcome back to War Thunder with Mags, and today we're taking a look at patch 1.71's newest tank destroyer, the Waffenträger. Now, the Waffenträger has been a difficult vehicle to cover in War Thunder, as it's not actually a singular vehicle. Waffenträger literally translates into weapons carrier and is the name used by a wide variety of vehicles designed and used by Germany in World War II. The version we see here in War Thunder is specifically the Krupp-Steyr Waffenträger, developed towards the end of 1943 to early 1944, and it has been extremely difficult to find detailed real-world information on. So sadly, rather than do my normal talk of go over the tank, its specifics, how it operates, and then talk a little bit about its history, we're going to have to skip the history part at this point. However, I do promise to do a video on the Waffenträger concept as a whole sometime in the very near future. In War Thunder, the Waffenträger is a rank 3 battle rating 5.7 tank destroyer armed with the 88mm KWK-43 cannon. This is the same cannon as carried by the Porsche and Heinkel Tiger IIs at battle rating 6.3 and 6.7 respectively, and it can carry a maximum of 30 shells into battle. The cannon is mounted onto a turret capable of a full 360 degrees of rotation with a maximum turret rotation speed of 11.9 degrees per second and a movement range of 8 degrees of depression to 45 degrees of elevation at maximum. Its 136 horsepower engine can push its 16.3 ton mass to a maximum listed speed of around 35 km an hour in ideal terrain, but you will most often be moving in the low to mid 20s on most War Thunder maps. She can handle up to 40 degrees of inclination, which is exceptionally important to her performance in-game, and is, well, she's technically armoured. At its thickest point, the Waffenträger's armour is 20mm thick, but this is only true on the front of the turret, the front of the upper glacis, the lower glacis, and the angled side panels that lead onto the turret deck. The rest of the tank has only 10mm of armour at any location, with the top decks themselves only carrying 5mm of armour. To put this armour into perspective, American 50 caliber machine guns, such as those mounted on top of the Sherman, with their default rounds can penetrate up to 19mm of armour at 500 meters, and 25mm of armour at 100 meters. What this means is the Waffenträger can be killed from the sides, the rear, and above by simply spraying it down with MG fire within 500 meters, and from the front with limitations from inside of 100 meters. As you can imagine, this armour gives limited resistance to main cannon shells from any vehicle within this battle range. In fact, the only place I've actually ever bounced shells from in this tank have been hits to the upper front plate from tanks engaging at over 800 meters. The upper front plate is angled back at 76 degrees, so it does provide a limited amount of protection in long-range engagements. Couple this poor armour with its low mobility and open top, and what you get may just be the easiest tank destroyer to kill in its battle rating range, and one of the easiest tanks to kill in the game overall. The only real saving grace to the Waffenträger's design is its extremely low profile hull, which does make it rather easy to hide. And then we come to the gun. The Tiger II's long 88 is a fantastic weapon at 6.3 to 6.7. At BR 5.7 it is devastating. The Waffenträger also gets access to exactly the same shell types as both versions of the Tiger II. The default round is the PZGR39/43 armour-piercing ballistic capped shell with 232mm of penetration at 100 meters and 204mm of penetration at 1000 meters. The second is the PZGR40/43 armour-piercing composite rigid shell with 270mm of pen at 100 meters and 228mm of penetration at 1000 meters. The final primary round is the HL/GR39 high explosive anti-tank shell with 110mm of penetration at all ranges. And lastly of all, there is the standard HE shell, which all of these tanks carry, 13mm of penetration at all ranges and angles. Now, you'll notice in the video down below that I am only using the default shell. To be clear, this isn't because I don't have the others unlocked. I do, I just see absolutely no purpose to using them. This is the long 88 at battle rating 5.7. In all honesty, you do not need any more than 232mm of penetration at 100 to 204 at 1000. This will go through pretty much any machine in the game in your battle rating. The only tanks that can bounce frontally are usually the 6.7 tanks in a maximum up tier, but even then you can still accurately hit the weak spots. But of course even that is only if you need to, because see, the Waffenträger comes standard with a rangefinder, and this you will be using a lot. Due to the low survivability and low mobility of the tank with the fantastic gun, full rotation capable turret, and the great inclination to get into high positions if necessary, plus the low profile to be able to hide the hull, the Waffenträger makes for an excellent, if overly specialised, sniping platform. And as you've seen on most of the video that's playing in the background thus far, and will continue to see, this is exactly how I drive it. Moving the tank out from the spawn point and immediately heading for a location that I know will have direct line of sight to passes, usually on at least 2 of the 3 major lanes on a map, so that I can clearly see tanks that are coming down, but also a position that has enough cover to be able to hide the hull and make myself difficult to detect. From there, quickly pop out the rangefinder and range find multiple locations on the map that I know tanks will be crossing, so I already know exactly what range they are to be able to hit those locations, and from there, you play the waiting game. And as the tanks move through those zones, it's a simple matter to hit them before they even realise you're there. One shot to each tank from this gun in this battle rating, and you almost always one shot. Now the downside of this, of course, is that you are normally sniping from a position that is relatively close to your spawn point, as it's easier to get to relatively quickly to get yourself set up. But of course, if the battle advances quickly and your team rapidly pushes the enemy team back, it's likely that these positions will no longer have any targets moving through them fairly quickly into the battle. And the low mobility of the Waffenträger means that advancing rapidly is actually quite difficult to do. It's very easy to find yourself left behind in the battle. Unfortunately, this is the cost of the vehicle, because actually trying to use this thing as an assault gun, pushing the front line, well, it doesn't work very well. It's not just an issue of low mobility, where pretty much everything that's going to be on your team is going to be faster than you are, but also the issue of survivability. Pretty much anything that you face is going to be able to easily pen you and one-shot your tank inside of 100 meters, which is the ranges you'll be looking at in that kind of engagement. But more than that, you'll also notice the position of the turret on the tank. It's mounted on the rear of the deck. And on top of that, you'll notice that the gun is significantly longer than the length of the hull. This means when coming through a corner, the enemy around the corner is going to see the gun long before it sees the tank and have plenty of time to react to that. And then you nearly need to put the entire length of the hull around the corner before you finally get into a position where you can get your gun and target. And by that point, you've already been shot and destroyed. When I'm sniping or operating on snitty maps where I don't have the opportunity to snipe, I generally approach corners in reverse. Now, this makes it even harder to stay with the front line, as you are limited to a maximum reverse speed of only 6 km per hour. But what it means is you can also get the turret around the corner to line up on the target without having to expose almost 2/3 of the length of the hull to a potential attacker before you can even get your gun on target. When sniping, I do exactly the same thing. Turn the tank around and bury the rear of the tank against the cover that I'm planning on shooting over when engaging targets, so that only a very small portion of the tank is actually exposed to enemy fire, making the tank much more difficult to spot, especially at ranges of between 500 to 1000 meters. And also pointing the nose in the direction that I'm going to want to drive into to find additional cover should I get spotted and come under fire. And this tends to work very, very well. So, the ultimate question, is the Waffenträger actually a good vehicle? Well, this one is actually hard to answer because it will depend on your playstyle. If you're very much a assault gun type person, you very much like to get in the face of the enemy with your tank destroyers, you're probably not going to enjoy this thing all that much, because while it has absolutely, without question, the best gun at its battle rating, the poor survivability, poor mobility, and relatively slow turret traverse of the Waffenträger means it is just not an effective brawler at close ranges. But on the other side, if you are somebody who likes to find yourself a nice cozy bush, get into a nice position overlooking the entire battlefield, and begin taking out targets from range, you are going to absolutely love this thing. It is lethal. But really, the only other piece of advice I can give in regards to the Waffenträger is do not take it into battle as a primary vehicle. Because it is so soft and because it is so slow, it is very easy to get into a compromised position. If it is your primary vehicle and it is the first thing you take out, there is a good chance that you could just get taken out right at the start of the battle. bring something else. At 5.7 battle rating, you have 2 Tigers that you can choose from. Bring one of those into the battle and have the Waffenträger as a second vehicle should you lose the Tiger. At that point, you'll have a much better idea of where the flow of the battle is gone, where to put the Waffenträger to make its gun effective, and allow you to then position to that location so that you can either run a strong defense that the enemy is going to have to fight through at extreme range, where their guns will probably not be quite so accurate or quite so powerful as yours, or allow you to position into a place where you can provide sniper support for a bunch of your tanks moving and advancing on an enemy position. In either situation, it is a solid pick. Anyways, ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed the video and thank you very much for watching. As always, if you would like to help support the channel, please feel free to check out my sponsor, Audible. Audible is the best place online to go for audiobooks. I just recently finally got around to finish listening to Guts and Gunships, what it was really like to fly combat helicopters in Vietnam. Absolutely fantastic. I thoroughly recommend it. Otherwise, for those of you who want to support the channel more directly, links to my Patreon are also in the video description down below as well. And for those of you who have already signed up as patrons, please check the notifications on Patreon. I left a message there for patrons only for something that I am working on right now, and I would like your input. Anyways, ladies and gents, until next time, remember to click that like button, subscribe if you want to see more, and as always, drive smart, drive safe, and I'll catch you on the battlefield.